Alright, what up?
How you doing?
Good, how are you, man?
Good. Just cramming for today's session.
I know, dude, who gives up the questions on Wednesday night? And I had to ask for them.
You did.
Yeah, what's that all about?
I'm glad you did. I was thinking about it. I just hadn't, texted the group, and I was like, you got the first question out on time. I don't know what the hold of it is.
Yeah.
Did you get a haircut?
I think we might need to talk about maybe skipping a week or something. Like, the topics are getting scarce, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It's hard. It is. But yeah, you cleaned up, though, huh?
Yeah, I did. I had to. I even tried to go for a couple days, but not the goat next. I just did the mustache and then, the lower bit, kind of like you're doing.
Yep.
And we're like, who is that? Oh, she hated that so much.
Well, Lauren does not like this at all. But I have to go to work yet, so it's going to stay.
Nice.
I've been working from home since March, and so I haven't really seen anyone of my wife and the neighbors and stuff. Today I had my first video deposition. I got on, everyone else is in suits and clean shaven, and I was like, oh, that party. I'll be ready in a couple minutes.
Alright.
Nice.
Yeah. Charlie, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
No guitar tonight?
No, I have it here. You want me to play something?
Okay. We got some downtime, right? We're waiting on Byron.
Been working on the Around the Corn theme song.
What you got so far?
You want to hear it?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Goes like this. Sports news you asked for. Around the corn.
Nice. I hope you recorded that.
I did. I'll delete it. I'll edit it out.
No, that's good, man.
Oh my god, I'm so glad I can barely hear that terrible song.
It's always one. Hey, before we go, got something for you guys there, if you can see it.
I would give you
I like that. Okay, are we all set?
I think so.
Okay, well, fun show. We got a fun show tonight. Some topics that I had to kind of pull from all over. And as you guys have all known, you recently had to write questions for the show. It is not easy. It is a barren landscape out there for subjects. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to make a brief comment on really the one story that's dominating sports and national headlines everywhere, which is George Floyd. And I'm not going to talk about it that much. I just want to make a comment because I was watching sports shows today and they brought up Jalen Rose again. And, he made a comment a couple days ago that really resonated with me as it relates to sports. And he said, I wish people loved black people as much as they love black culture. And that, to me, like I said, it really resonated because here we are, we're doing a sports show, we do it every week, and it's absolutely dominated by black culture, right? We eat it up, we love it. And he's right, he's absolutely right about that. And I think, at least for me, and I think probably for all of us, we are fortunate enough to live in a community where we don't see a lot of this firsthand. And so it doesn't seem like it's as big of a problem as it is. And it unfortunately takes events like this for the rest of us to realize that this isn't a thing in the past. This isn't just a one-off. It's something that's every day, all around, across the country. And so because we're doing a sports show and we do sports shows and we love sports so much, and black culture is so ingrained in sports, I thought it at least bear acknowledgement and mentioning. So there it is. That's my bit on it. Without wasting any more time, let's just dive right into it. First question. I love this question. You guys might not, but it's one of my favorites. Diving right into the NBA. NBA expansion draft time. You guys all get to be GMs, but here are the rules. You're the GM of the Portland Trail Blazers. You get to protect any 2 players that you want. And you get the first pick in the draft, but you have to draft within the Pacific Division, and you can't pick a Blazer. So I want to know what 2 Blazers are you protecting, and then who is your first pick? Charlie.
All right. Well, very well said, Byron. Basically, I want to first mention a little expansion draft history here. Arvid Kramer, the only player to be drafted in 2 expansion drafts. First in the 1980 expansion draft by the Dallas Mavericks, and then second, the first overall pick at age 31 by the Miami Heat in 1988. So interesting the only player to ever be picked in 2 different expansion drafts. Okay, so as far as the Blazers go, the only real answer, and it's from a business standpoint, you protect Dame and you protect CJ. There's no other option you have here. You can talk about the fit, you can talk about how much you like these players, you can talk about how much you like the other players, but at the end of the day, you can't let Dame or CJ go away from this team without getting something in return. So you have to protect those assets, and maybe you trade CJ down the road, or you trade Dame. That's fine, but you can't let these assets go for nothing. What was more interesting to me was looking at who are the players that were potentially going to be lost beyond that, because I think the protection question is simple. I think it's Dame and CJ. I'd be curious to hear if anybody has different answers. But I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I'm kind of thinking that maybe Zach Collins is the guy that other teams will be looking at. I think he would be the number 1 target. Maybe Hassan Whiteside. I don't know. It's just an interesting piece to think about. Let's go through the other teams. As far as, do you want me to give you who I would protect on those other teams in the division?
No, I want to know who you would pick, presuming that they're going to protect their 2 best players. And so don't tell me you're going to pick Jokic unless you can tell me why he wouldn't be protected. Of
course, gotcha. Okay, then I'll just get right into it. I don't want to go Byron here and take up all your time. So this was a really hard one for me. I really came down to 2 or 3 guys that I had interest in, and all of them were on the Denver Nuggets. It really became a coin flip to me. For youth and upside, I really like Michael Porter Jr., but the reason I didn't want to pick him was because there is some risks associated with his health, of course, and then it's still an unknown. He's not established. If I'm starting a expansion team, I'd like to get a player that is young, in his prime, a little bit established, and I know he can contribute to the team right away, have a little leadership, and still continue to grow with that team. So with that said, my pick is actually Gary Harris of the Denver Nuggets. I think this is a very good player. This is a 36% career 3-point shooter. He's a great defensive player. I think, Denver Nuggets it's really strange what they've gone through. They've been lucky in drafts, and they've really added a lot of nice pieces to their team over the years. And I think it's kind of taken away from Gary Harris because last few years, kind of been a few down years in the last few years, but in 2017, Gary Harris averaged 17.5 points on 48.5% shooting, 39% three-point shooting. That is, I'm not going to say elite, but that is very, very good starter-level guard right there in the NBA. And that's the type of player I want on my team. So I went ahead, I had Gary Harris edged over Michael Porter Jr.
Okay, so Charlie protects the CJ and then drafts basically another CJ. Interesting. Devo, what do you got?
So I agree with Charlie. This one was hard. So looking at it, I definitely went the same. I kept CJ and Dame. But then I had to think, what do I need most? And I think it goes defense. And when it comes to defense, you would want to pick a center, so I'd want to keep one in Nurk or Whiteside. But then I think none of the other teams would actually pick both up without me coming around again to draft at least one of them. So I went with a wing player, and I wanted to get athletic because we're going to have to be guarding LeBron. We're going to have to be guarding Kawhi. So I went with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from OKC. And it was hard because there's not many wing players to pick from. So the wing player is going to get real scarce real quick. So I want to pick the best one I can get out there because that's an important position. And then if I come back around and I get my center, if I get Whiteside, I think I'm looking pretty with those four right there. Then I can just fill in my power forward with whatever else is left out there. So yeah, I went Gilgeous-Alexander from OKC.
I love the pick. I think there's some risk that he might otherwise be protected by OKC. I mean, they have Chris Paul and Gallinari, but there's a real risk that the OKC GM protects him.
I had Shai protected.
CP3 and what's the tall guy, white guy?
They're not protected. Why would they? You're saying they'd protect CP3? Why would they protect him? No one's going to take him in his contract.
Someone might take.
I don't know.
Yeah. Fair enough. I like addressing the defense. Jeremy, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so the only thing I agree with is Dame and CJ, right? We're in a scoring league. You've got two of the best scorers from the point guard and shooting guard positions. You've got to keep them. As a Blazer fan, one of my biggest Achilles heels is the small forward position. Not to mention we always go back and forth. Who's our third scorer? Who can be the consistent third scorer? Well, given who the Jazz, Nuggets, OKC, Minnesota would possibly keep, I'm looking at small forward. I'm looking at Utah. So I would take Bogdanovich. The guy's shooting 44.7% from the field, 90% free throw shooter, 41.4 from the three-point line, averaging 20.2 points a game. You want a consistent third scorer that fills the small forward position that we've needed for a long time? Give me Bogdanovich.
Okay.
Hey.
Coming off, I think, a season-ending injuries. Dame's going to be 35 when he's healthy.
Start till December, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
Hey,
all right.
I've got a quick question about what kind of expansion draft is this? Some sort of re-expansion of the Blazers team? I don't understand how that works.
It wasn't the best crafted question, but it was intended as like you're rebuilding the Blazers and you get to protect too.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think Jeremy and Devo got that, but I can see how you can get that wrong.
Okay. No, I mean, if some make-believe draft, no, I get it. That's fine.
It was a little bit vague. Okay, sticking with the NBA. We're coming up, I think there's some older coaches in the league which will soon give way to a new wave of coaches, which is exciting because I think we're at that age and that era where we'll start to see more coaches of players that we used to watch. Luke Walton was the first kind of for me where I was like, man, I used to watch this guy ball. Ty Lue was around for a while, but he didn't play much. Not that Luke Walton was an all-star, but anyways, I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Looking at the current NBA landscape now, what players out there do you see potentially being a head coach in the league in the future? Devo?
So first off, what I don't want to go for, because I think they make terrible coaches, because we've seen in the past, and terrible GMs, are big-time players. So no LeBrons, no Steph Currys, no, because these guys, they're the top, so they can't even understand. They're just like, go do this, I did it, and that doesn't do well for coaching. So I'm thinking the best thing you want is somebody that was a role player on a great team. Because if you think right now, a lot of the great coaches were role players on great teams. Ty Lue with the Lakers, Doc Rivers, Steve Kerr, Mark Jackson. So, and I think that works because they've seen great so they know how to work with it when it comes to if they deal with a LeBron or a KD. And then they also know, as a role player, what they need to tell the role players and what to make them special too, and work with the great team. So after saying all that, I think maybe Andre Iguodala. He's been on a dynasty. He could maybe be a great coach. He knows the system. People always say he's really smart. He's more of a defensive guy, so he can help guys with that. And he was one of my guys. And then you said playing there. You emphasized that when you said the question, but I didn't really see that in the question on paper. But I said Shane Battier, too. I like him as well. But he's obviously out of the game.
No, that's a good pick. That's a solid pick. Jeremy?
Yeah, I went with I stuck with the current NBA player, but to the guys that you mentioned, Devo, right? So Mark Jackson, Doc, Ty Lue, all those guys, right? Steve Kerr. What do they have in common? What position did they play? Guard. Okay, even Jason Kidd, who kind of failed as a coach, he played guard. So I went with a guard that had the chance to learn under Doc. Give me some Chris Paul. He's got leadership ability. He's got the court vision. Again, he learned under Doc. He fits that guard mold. Seems to be somewhat successful in the NBA as far as transitioning to coach. So I'll take Chris Paul.
Okay. All right. Chris Paul's got a strong resume. Chuck?
Those are all great points. And, you named a couple former NBA players. It's actually not as common as you'd think. You get a lot of former college players, a lot of, foreign guys that played foreign. Sometimes they couldn't even have made it to the NBA, and they become successful NBA coaches. But one thing the one thing I like about this guy is he is very low on the athleticism spectrum, okay? But he has made a great career out of himself. He's a great shooter, and he's a great defender. And that's J.J. Redick of the New Orleans Pelicans. And he's been coached by great coaches. He came from Duke with Mike Krzyzewski, and I think he really has a great understanding. He kind of evolved along with this NBA as it transitioned into this three-point shooting type of offense. And I think that's what he knows. I think that's what he's good at. And I just like to see a guy like that. What the thing that Devo was saying was that a lot of these guys that are great players, they a lot of times they carry themselves off their athleticism. So, when they get into coaching, they have a hard time explaining it. One of the only few good coaches I can remember who was a great player was Larry Bird. He was a solid coach, but I don't think he was ever recognized for his athleticism. So I think that is a common theme you see, and I think that all those things would make J.J. Redick a solid coach.
Very interesting.
That was out of nowhere. I never would have guessed.
Yeah. Interesting picks across the board. Very interesting. I didn't have anyone in mind. I usually, how you answer your own questions whenever you draft these. I couldn't think of anyone, and so I was really interested to hear what you guys came up with. And very interesting and good arguments across the board. This was probably my favorite question drafting, and I had my own thoughts on it. So we've been watching hoops for 25 years, 30 years, and every few years, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, there's a generational guy. And I'm not just talking about generational talent, but a guy who plays the game in a certain way that transforms the way the game is played from that point forward. Just a guy that changes the way the game is played. And so let me put this to you guys. Jeremy, I'll start with you. Who has revolutionized the game in your eyes in our generation?
Yeah, to me, this is kind of like the most eye-rolling answer you could have of the night, right? It's going to be Steph Curry for the way that we shoot the three ball. And so I wanted to kind of try to back this up with some numbers because, again, that just seems like the low-hanging fruit. But at the same time, I think that's the most honest answer in terms of, like, game-changing player. So I'm looking at the three-point shooting specifically. The NBA as a whole, from the year 2006 to 2011, averaged, and it fluctuated, but it went from 6.1 all the way up to 6.4, back to 6.1 three-pointers per team per game. Well, Steph comes into the league, first 2 years shoots 2.1 threes a game. In 2012 and 2013, that jumps to 3.5, so he almost doubles the amount of threes he's taking per game. The league average goes up from 6.4 to 7.2, and it's gone up every single year since then, and we're now 12.1 threes per game. So, to me, it's Steph Curry.
Okay. Chuck?
Is my screen frozen?
Yep.
Yup.
Do you want to reset while Devo answers?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, the best part of a boxer's game is the counterpunch. So I figured everybody was going with Steph Curry because, like Jeremy said, that's the easy one to go for. But I thought another generational talent that we saw in our lifetime that changed the game was Sir Shaquille O'Neal. One of the biggest big men we've ever seen, so dominant that literally they had to create a rule for him, the hack-a-shack. Teams were fouling him before getting across half court and not even saving time on the clock, giving themselves more possessions overall in the game, and sending this terrible free throw guy to the line just because they already knew if they don't, he's a guaranteed bucket down there, and he might even just beast our center out of the game. So Hack was just great. Obviously, we saw a lot of it in Portland because we were like one of the number one teams to do it, but it was the coach out of Dallas who started it. I mean, we've even seen it on some other players down the road, Dwight Howard, but they still call it hack-a-shack. Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most dominant players, one of the most game-changing players of our generation.
Solid. Chuck?
Well, this is kind of another sort of eye roll. It's kind of like, it's sort of right in front of you type of answer to me. I love both your answers so far. The Shaquille O'Neal, that's a great one. I love that. But to me, I'm thinking Michael Jordan. You know, really, when Michael Jordan came around, what he did to the culture of sports, the culture of NBA, his effect on pop culture. I mean, the lasting effect he had on all the people that watched him play was so intense and so immense. And you were coming into an age where, you know, technology was improving. Basketball was more accessible. It was easier to watch. You know, Jordan pulled in so many new fans of basketball and just grew the NBA to something bigger than anybody really could have ever imagined. And so that's what I think about. If you don't have Jordan, you know, you don't have Kobe, you don't have Dwayne Wade, you know, these types of players that you know, play his style, and you know, his Jordan's style translates into other cultures, rap culture and acting, and you know, all sorts of people are just huge fans of Michael Jordan. So I think he has had the most lasting impact on the NBA over the last 30 years.
To all solid answers. I put Jordan maybe just a touch outside of our generation. I feel like maybe he was a little bit premature, but you make a compelling case.
That was because that is low-hanging fruit, but I never thought of him. I literally did not think of Michael Jordan as one of them.
I didn't either. Well, and the parallels to Kobe and Wade are dead on. I think that's perfect. A couple other guys on my list. I thought Iverson was pretty revolutionary. He changed the way we saw the guards play the position. I thought Dirk was pretty revolutionary, a 7-footer that can shoot. We've never seen anything like that until Dirk came around, and now, you know, a stretch 4 you have to be a stretch four if you want to place in the league. So, yeah, there was some interesting choices out there, but I love everybody's pick.
And as far as too, like Dirk, as far as a Euro guy, that was like,
yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on to the NFL. Deshaun Jackson recently said that he'd like to see NFL players mic'd up. At first, I thought, Deshaun Jackson, what are you thinking? But the more I thought about it, I thought that actually, to me, sounds fantastic. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Do you think it's a good idea? And if so, who would you want to hear mic'd up? Devo?
Yeah, I mean, your first reaction is the right reaction. What do you think? There's just no possible way. It's just like, how? Like, football is such a violent sport. Like, I can only imagine the type of shit talking that is going on during a football game. Like, basketball is a little bit different because they have toned it down because they know the fans are right on top of them. You get a technical for calling a guy a bitch in basketball. In football, that's not the way it goes. You can cuss at the ref and he'll give you a break as long as you don't excessively keep coming at him with it. So I just don't understand what he thinks they could make up that would be like really quality for anybody to hear. And then also too, like the stuff I want to hear the most is probably stuff the coaches don't want out there. Is like strategy and like what plays they're doing and what they're thinking in these moments or what they're exactly telling Tom Brady or Dak Prescott or some quarterback in these moments what to look for. And those are the things I want to hear. So I just don't even think it's realistic. If you maybe did it on pay-per-view, then you could get all the cussing and all that stuff. But like, and just to like edit it live, that would be really hard on being like, oh, they're about to say something that they wouldn't want on there. Delete them out. So I just don't even see it being possible.
Viewer discretion is advised.
I want to get mic'd up, but it'd probably be somebody you talk about. What's that cornerback's name on LA?
Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey. I probably want him good. Whoever talks about shit, that's what I want.
He'd be solid. Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, those are all great points. It's really difficult to figure out the logistics of that. I would absolutely love it. I think it would be awesome. Maybe an idea to do it is, I think the way they do it now is they mic up one or two players in the game, and everybody's aware of that. So I think guys around them are a little careful. They watch what they're saying here and there. But yeah, playing it off live, there's probably no way. You got to edit that down and make it appropriate later on. But yeah, a couple players. Some of the tight ends, I think Travis Kelce, George Kittle, those guys are pretty funny guys, so I think they will be fun to watch. But the number one guy that I want to see mic'd up, and it's pretty wide margin, is Felipe Rios. I love this guy, dude. Yes, Phillip Rivers, I'm telling you, he's a great. Yeah. He talks shit. You could go ahead and look. You can see some highlights of mic'd up Phillip Rivers, and it is just a treat. And the thing I love about it is Phillip Rivers, he seems like a pretty relatable guy to me. Like, he seems like a caring husband, a loving father of 9, a pretty normal, good guy off the field. But once he gets on the field, all bets are off, and he's just a madman. And I just love to see it.
Love that. And I have seen some Phillip Rivers mic'd up, and it's quality viewing, no doubt about it.
I think Charlie showed it to us now that I think of it.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I was trying to think of, honestly, like, if this were a few years back, I would say Rick Lewis hands down, but obviously he's not in the league anymore. So I was trying to think of linebackers, and then I'm thinking, like, what are some matchups that we like in the NFL? We never talk about D lineman versus O lineman, right? But we do talk about corner versus receiver. Who's a corner that I used to hate, but that got really well known in 2013 defending Crabtree? Richard Sherman. I would love to hear some of the smack talk that comes out of that mouth. He's going to be going up against like Hopkins this year, twice a year, or DK Metcalf. So give me some Richard Sherman.
Yeah, I didn't think of Richard Sherman. That's quality, and that would be something.
Another old guy on my list was Steve Smith.
Oh,
Carolina.
Yeah.
You know he'd be chirping all game.
Oh, this game on the right game would be the best ever.
All right, sticking with NFL to a certain extent. So the XFL folded to the surprise of nobody, but they did have some interesting rules that they rolled out during their season. Kickoff, extra points, things like that. And I thought some of them were interesting, some of them were ridiculous. But I'd like to hear from you guys. Are there any of those XFL rules that you'd like to see the NFL adopt? Chuck?
Yeah, there's one. In an NFL game, average actual gameplay averages about 11 to 15 minutes of gameplay. An average NFL game takes 3 hours and 12 minutes. So, if you're going to watch a football game from start to finish, you're spending 3 hours of not watching football. You know, that is a tough pill to swallow. I know we're used to it. It's the flow of the game, but man, there's a lot of time wasted here. So I'd love to see that play clock rule. 25-second play clock. The ball, incomplete pass, they start the clock once the ball's spotted after the incomplete pass. Speed this game up a little bit. I'd love to see it.
Interesting. Jeremy?
Yeah, good call, and I honestly strongly considered that one. But at the end of the day, for me, I want entertainment value. So for me, I love the idea of taking away the point after attempt. And so the XFL rule was the team can line up at the 2-yard line and go for a 1-point conversion, or you can line up at the 5-yard line and go for a 2-point conversion. Get the kicker out of there. And so just to solidify that point, I was looking at some of the top kickers in the NFL last year. On extra point attempts, they make 150 out of 156. 96% of the time, they're making that extra point. That's boring as hell to watch that. Plus, I'm a fantasy football player. You get my offensive player out there with another chance to score an extra point? Heck yes, I'm tuning into that.
Like that. And you want them going for 2 because you want that extra fantasy point.
Sure.
Well, first of all, this isn't baseball, so I don't want to speed this game up any. Like, I've never watched a football game and been like, damn, this is on Thursday night and it's the only game. I'm not sitting there like, wow, I wish this would like speed up and be over with already. Like, I don't think that. I would never go for that one.
I've felt that plenty of times.
But the one I went with that I kind of liked, but I think they ended up scrapping. They were talking about heavyweight was. Instead of doing the onside kick, which is pretty much impossible nowadays, they were going to do a 4th and 15 on the 25-yard line of the opponent's field. And if you complete that, then you keep the ball and you continue on down the field. But if you don't, then the team gets the ball either at the 25 or wherever they get the ball, or you get the 13 yards, or you get the 12 yards. And so I really like that just because, like I said, the onside kick is pretty much dead. And that's the big element of coming back in a football game out of it. You basically eliminated a large chunk of any of these incredible comebacks with taking out the onside kick. And so at least if you get that in there, that will help. And if you think about it, what if the game, you were down 17, you got 6 minutes left. You don't want your defense back on the field because they're trash, so you just keep going for it. Touchdown, get it back again, run down the field, touchdown again. Like, how exciting would that be? And then on your third chance, you're like, oh, I'm only down 3. We make it halfway down the field and we don't get it, or you get the field goal or something. Like, there's just so many exciting possibilities with that I think could happen. The only thing that scares me is that Patrick Mahomes last year on 3rd or 4th down and 15 or plus, out of 16 tries, he was 12 for 16. So that would make the most powerful offense even more powerful. But I like it for the whole comeback aspect because I think it's really hard to come back in the NFL nowadays.
Yeah. That is very interesting. I hadn't really thought about how it would change it. Teams might just routinely go for the 4th and 15 because their defense sucks.
First, when they they didn't say anything about your team having to be down, and so people were thinking like, "Oh, I don't want Kansas City to ever go back on the field, even if I'm up. I'll just keep doing it." You know? But then they were like modified it, and it's like, "No, you have to be down to actually do that play."
Yeah. I think that's the most points I've awarded across the board on a single question for all of you guys. Those were fantastic answers. Very, very well done. And frankly, I'd like to see all of those changes in the NFL. Okay, sticking with football for a little bit, but shifting over to fantasy. The fantasy draft this time of year, I would otherwise be buying my magazines, I'd be getting my prep ready, I'd be doing some mock drafts and not telling you guys about it. But I've put it all on hold for a little bit, but I do want to get a question in about the draft itself. You guys have been through enough drafts to know that it kind of comes in waves, it comes in stages, and rounds 1, 2, and 3 are not like rounds 11, 12, and 13. The whole world has changed by the time you get from round 3 to round 13. And so I'm curious, what are your 2 favorite rounds? They have to be consecutive. Your 2 favorite rounds in the draft and the reason behind that. Jeremy, let's start with you.
Yeah, and so for me, my initial gut reaction, I was like, well, yeah, first 2 rounds, that makes the most sense, right? But no, honestly, those are the first 2 rounds I'm sweating the most. Those are the first 2 rounds where my plans go to complete shit, and then I'm panicking. If I happen to get the first pick, I'm doing like 12 shots of freaking fireball, so it can't be the first 2 rounds for me. Honestly, I would go with the last 2 rounds. By then the pressure's off, your team's set, those guys are guys you're probably cutting anyway. And it leads into part of my favorite part of the night. The draft is ending. We get to roster bait for a while. We get the draft grades sent out. So give me the final 2 rounds of the draft.
Interesting. Devo?
That was the safest answer ever. Of course it's the first 2 rounds. They're the most exciting 2 rounds. Even if you know what the players are going to be picked at, just like once you get your pick, your roster spot, you're like, okay, I'm first or I'm second. Even though you're first or second, you don't know what they're going to pick in front of you. You know, like first you pick up a Christian McCaffrey when you think he's going to pick up Zeke or something like that, and then you're just reeling from that point on. It's quicker, it's more exciting. Not to mention, there's actually some more shot taking because we've all written down big names on there. Oh, Zeke or somebody that we know is going to get a lot of shots. Like, oh, he's getting picked, so we might as well. Like when I picked, I think it was Zeke that one year, and I got screwed. Yeah, so it's just the first 2 rounds. And you can't even compare it to the later rounds. The later rounds are so slow and boring, and you just like everything, all the excitement's done. And then, too, what makes it kind of unreal towards the end is if somebody picks your guy, that sends you reeling because there's nobody left. And the lists are all messed up, the colors are all mixed up. The later rounds.
Chuck, what you got?
Man, those are great answers. Devo, you reminded me, I don't know how many times I've had the number 1 overall pick, maybe once or twice. But how great is that feeling when the number 1 is basically an undisputed pick and you just know it right away and you can just sit back, you can just watch the first 2 rounds basically, and it's just the greatest feeling. So I love that answer. This is great. We're all going different angles. I'm going right around the 5th to 7th round. Now, this is a time when we've gone through a couple rounds. People were giving out penalty drinks. People, the drinks are settling in. 8 to 9 of the team's game plan for the draft is already unraveled. They already don't know what they're doing. And so that's and plus that's a very important part of the draft. That's where the draft is won. So right when all these guys are struggling, plenty of people are already hammered by then. And that's my time to shine, baby.
You did not prove it's been hammered.
It doesn't matter. I can still perform.
I love that. I love all those answers. Although, Jeremy, I can't. The last 2 rounds.
I know. I
I
knew that was going to be an unpopular pick, but for me personally, like I said, some of my favorite moments of the day is standing around after the draft and talking about the teams and going over all that stuff. So for me personally, if I'm picking 2 rounds, just give me the 2 at the end. Let's get to the end. Let's get to some of my more favorite parts of the day for me.
Fair enough. And that's a great point.
How many times have you had first place? Everybody hold up their hands.
For what? First pick?
What?
Yeah, first pick.
First pick.
4 times?
I think I've had it 4 times.
Jesus, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Now, how many
I don't think I ever had.
Most random.
Never was paid off. I've never got anything good out of it.
Now raise your hand if you have a championship.
Oh,
Put your hand down, Devo. You're like Tom Brady over here. Nice.
All right,
Okay. Moving on. Speaking of drafts, we just concluded the NFL draft, and because we had really no other sports news, we beat that thing to death. The NBA draft has just been set for October, which is crazy, but that they got to have it sometime. And so my question to you guys is, between NBA, NFL, and Major League, who does it best, going from high school to college to the pros? Who has the best system for doing that? Jeremy?
Yeah, for me, it's college football, hands down. If you were to do something like college basketball, where it's a one and done, you've got so many young kids coming into the NFL. Bodies aren't quite ready yet. Everybody that comes into the NFL as a rookie talks about how the game speed is so much different. So I think it's incredibly important that they stay in college for those 3 years, let their bodies develop. I think if they were to come out before that, we would see such a watered-down NFL. I've hated one and done for NCAA. I'm a big fan of giving them 2 to 4 years. Maybe not 4, that seems extreme. But I just don't like the one and done rule. I'd love to see college players stick around for at least 2 years, get to know the systems better, develop more before coming out. So for me, NCAA football.
All right. Devo?
Yeah, I had to go football as well, just because as far as what Jeremy kind of touched on, is you never hear the guys complain about the age coming into the NFL, and the players are going to be vocal what they don't think is fair. It's like you always hear in the NCAA basketball, hey, I don't think it's fair that I have to go do a year, or I think it's fair that I don't, or whatever it is. But yeah, I just think it's, and everybody knows the gap from college to NFL is so big that you need every bit of, couple of guys probably stay all 4 years, and then come into the league. It's not very many that are even coming out, those 3 years or 2 years or whatever it is. So I just think the NFL does it way better. I don't think the NBA should really be telling you what you should do, because some guys could come out. We've seen Garnett, we've seen Kobe. It's a slim margin of guys that can come out and do it. But if you have that option, I don't think you should be denied necessarily. So yeah, NFL for me.
Chuck?
So Jeremy, you're telling me you want to ask these players to stay in the NCAA and risk their health and their bodies for nothing, and just possibly waste their careers away? I mean, listen, this rule is different in different leagues for a reason. All these sports require different, NFL, it requires that maturation of those players. Those players need to grow and be at that level. So technically, you could say all these leagues have it right. That could be an answer. But what I like is I like what the NBA has done. And what I like is I have the feeling that the NBA cares about it because they have revisited it, they have revamped it, they have changed it. They've looked at it again. They used to have a high school rule. Then they changed it to the one and done, which seems to be working just fine. And now they have a new rule coming out or something that they're trying to do where they're having players be eligible to go into their G League program. So they can come straight out of high school. They can get paid right away in a program that is organized and supportive directly by the NBA. So I really like that the NBA seems to be putting a lot of thought into this whole process. So that's the reason why I like the NBA to have it best with this.
One thing I forgot to mention too, just to play devil advocate on my topic, is if there was one person I think you could let out into the NFL early is the running back. Just because their lifespan is so short overall, like letting them out early would probably do them some benefit. They're not probably getting much bigger from those days, that second or third year.
That's true. I gotta say, I'm surprised no one rolled with the baseball rule because that, to me, seems like the best one across the board. If you're good enough to go from high school, you ought to go. And I don't care what sport you're in. There are some guys that are NFL. There's a few that are NFL ready. There's more that are probably NBA ready. And some that are Major League Baseball ready right out of high school. Don't make these guys go to school. But if you're not and you're going to commit to a university, well, the university is committing to you. And so it has to be a two-way street with a real commitment. And so, with the baseball rule, it's you can go straight from high school, but if you're going to commit, you got to give the university 3 years minimum. And I like that. I think it would improve the college product. For basketball, certainly, because guys would say, we already have it in football, you have to be here 3 years, and it's there in baseball. I think when you get sophomores, juniors into college sports, it really raises the level because you have guys who are pros, basically, who are at the pro level, who are playing in college. It just makes a better product. But you're also not denying guys who are 17 and 18 years old good enough to go make a living to go do that. So I'm surprised no one went with that. Deepa kind of alluded to that a little bit. But it's good. It's a tough question, and it's good answers all around. Okay. The breaking news was the NBA playoffs getting hammered out. It was finalized today, but it was largely what was sent out the other day. So they'll have 8 regular season games, a bunch of teams from the West, fewer from the East, and then ultimately, if you're within striking distance of the 9 seed, then there's a tournament. For that 8th seed. I think 8th seed is single elimination, 9th seed is double elimination, which is kind of cool. And so I'm interested in what you guys think about that. Who do you see coming out of the East, coming out of the West, and is either one of those 8 seeds going to have anything for the 1 seed? Devo?
Is this just one of the random ones? I didn't see this one on there.
I thought I put it on there, didn't I?
Yeah, you said it's going to replace the Lance Armstrong one, right?
It was revised, so he might have missed it. It was later on.
Yeah. Give me a second. Let me go last.
Chuck.
Okay, so I think the East is pretty straightforward. I think it's pretty funny to look at the fact that they only included 9 teams in the whole thing. So I think the Magic will secure that 8th spot. I don't think they have anything for the Bucks. That series will be unwatchable, unfortunately. But the West, I think it could be quite interesting. One thing I want to mention about this, all these teams that are coming back to the season, this is really quite an unprecedented event. All these teams, they got to be ready, man. They got to come out. They got to have their A+ game right away. They got no time to gel. They got no time to build chemistry. They got to have it right away. So it's going to be interesting. You could see any one of these teams, top to bottom, come out a little sluggish, drag a little bit, and they could slip, and that could be it for them. So with that said, I'm looking at the Memphis Grizzlies. I had to take a look at them. I was kind of... I discount them. I don't really love the Grizz, but I had to look into them because they are where they are because they got a pretty solid lineup there. they've got 7 guys averaging 10 points or more. The Blazers they had 5. The 5th was Hood. So, they've got depth. They've got a lot of very good players on that roster. So they're going to be a very formidable team. They're going to be very tough. Now, the one thing I want to mention, and the other 2 teams that I'm only really interested in are the Blazers and the Pelicans. Now, the reason is what I suspect are some changes. I expect the Blazers, I think they'll be having Nurkic back, and I think they'll get Zach Collins back. So this is going to be a different look. These are some much-needed guys. I can't say that they were starting to get things turned around, but, I'm a Blazer guy, and I like Melo. I like Hassan Whiteside. I see potential for these guys if they can all get together and get Collins and Nurkic back in this fold, then I think that's a team that can compete with the Memphis Grizzlies. The other thing you have about the Blazers is a huge advantage in playoff experience and clutchness. I mean, with Damian Lillard and CJ, those are some of the clutchest guys in the West. So you can't count them out in a single elimination, even a double elimination. So I like them. And then the Pelicans, again, another team with some change, getting Zion in the fold recently. That's a hot team right now. Can they come out and continue to do what they do? They're young guys, fresh legs. It can be any one of those guys. But because of that edge that the Blazers have, not because I'm a Blazers fan and I love my Blazers, but because of their playoff experience, and I would have the Blazers getting that 8th spot. And I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. I guess it'll probably be the Lakers in the number 1 seed. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's going to be a tough one. I mean, I think they can take a game or 2, but I'd say maybe 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the point with the Blazers about playoff experience, because so often that you have young teams on the 8, 9 seed, and the debate is always, do you want them to have a lottery pick or do you want them to make the playoffs? And so often people say, no, I want to see these guys get playoff experience. Well, the Blazers have had that, right? And so if you're going to cash that in, now is the time to do it. I like that. Jeremy?
Yeah, so the East is pretty easy. Orlando's got a 5.5 game lead over the Wizards. 8 games to play. Wizards aren't suddenly going to go 8-0 against playoff teams. So Orlando's got that locked up. And to Charlie's point, it's going to be a sweep. The Bucks are going to take them. It's not even going to be watchable. So to the more interesting West, Charlie hit it on the head in terms of, you got Memphis, who's 3.5 games up. However, they've had one of the easier schedules of the season, and they were, from what I heard, they were going to have a very difficult stretch towards the end of the season. So now that you have to play basically playoff teams for all 8 games, I don't expect them going on a big winning streak. Whereas if you get Nurk back, you get Collins back, Blazers are in a much better position. Same thing with the Pelicans, getting a healthy Zion. Those 2 teams would be the 8-9 seed. It does make me nervous in a elimination game with the Pelicans, and the reason is Portland's 0-4 against the Pelicans this season. Granted, you didn't have or Collins, but for 2 of those games, the Pelicans didn't have Zion. So that definitely almost feels like a coin flip to me, given how they've played against each other. But I'm going to go with my heart and say Portland gets in. Now, the biggest thing here is if you play the Lakers in round 1, do the Lakers have home court advantage? No, there's no fans. You're playing on a neutral court. So you now have the Portland Trail Blazers, who are relatively healthy. They just came off the Western Conference Finals in a neutral court. I think they at least have a shot at an upset here.
I like it. Devo?
Am I supposed to tell you who I like coming out of the East and the West, too?
Skip the East.
Well,
So
as far as the 8 seed,
over the East, because the biggest question out East is KD. When KD came back? It's been like 400 days since he tore his Achilles. That's a long time. he's definitely healthy enough. What if KD came back in that 8th spot and playing that 8th spot and nobody else got in, Orlando didn't get in? They could make a run in the East. And as far as Portland in the West, I don't see it happening. I see Memphis holding down that 8th spot. One thing that's scary about this on the West is, doesn't that make Dallas vulnerable of losing that 7th spot too at the 8th game? I don't know how that works exactly. Or is it only the 8th spot is vulnerable?
Only the 8th spot is vulnerable.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it'll be a play-in.
It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, since they only invited 22 teams back, that schedule is going to be different. What's that schedule going to look like? I'm excited to see that.
I am too. And, there's been some rules floated. I haven't seen anything enacted. I didn't look today. There's some rules floated to try to account for what would have been home court advantage. And some of them were like the team that would otherwise have home court advantage gets to pick one player who gets 7 fouls instead of 6, or they get to start with the ball in the second, fourth quarter no matter what. Just kind of some silly rules. I don't know. I didn't see what was voted on or approved. It all sounds kind of crazy, but I'm really looking forward to it. All right, so I had a Lance Armstrong question. I'm glad I found something else to take attention off of it because, if there's a sport I care less about than cycling, I don't know what it is. So I'm happy to take it out, but the cheating aspect is always fun to me. As a guy who saw my skills and athleticism start to fade later in my basketball career, I had to rely on cheating and grabbing and fouling and veteran moves to get by. So I'm a big fan of cheating in any way possible. And that gets to Pete Rose. Now, he's not necessarily a cheater, but he's a rule breaker, right? And there's no denying that he broke rules. There are rules against gambling in baseball. He broke them. He also broke records. So when we get into the designation of, are you a Hall of Famer? It's an interesting question, and I want to put it to you guys. So, Devo, let's start with you.
I don't think he should be let in the Hall of Fame because he did the worst type of. If you're doing point shaving and that type of cheating, that's the worst to me. Like, there's nothing worse than like throwing games or like losing for a reason. I guess you would say. Now, if you're betting on yourself to win, and like that's totally cool in my eyes. I know that's against the rules now, but like what he did, I think is the worst type of cheating there really is because you're just screwing the team over and screwing other people's stats technically and just for what reason? Your own reason. So yeah, I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he did the worst that he can do. That's not the type of cheating I like.
Okay. Jeremy?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. He only bet on his teams to win, right?
That's what he says.
Okay. Well, that's what we can prove, right? So, not only that, but he did it as a coach, not as a player. So what I'm looking at here is, as a baseball player, look at his resume. He's a career 303 hitter. He's won National League Rookie of the Year. He won a National League MVP, 17-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove. He holds the hits record. As far as we know, he didn't bet while he was a player. So the way that I break this out is, as a player, should he be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. As a coach, should he be in the Hall of Fame? No.
Okay. One doesn't impact the other, says Jeremy. Chuck, what say you?
4,256 hits. This is probably a record that will never be beat. I mean, this is insane. There's no doubt about it that he's got the resume to get in. If you look at the hits list, all-time hits list of players, you got to go all the way to number 99 or number 100 before you find a guy that's not either in the Hall of Fame or about to be voted into the Hall of Fame. So there's no doubt about it that he's got the resume to be a Hall of Famer. Now, the problem with Rose is that he's been hit and he's been made an example of. This is what Devo said. This is a very serious thing, and you cannot see this in sports. This can disrupt the integrity of any sport at any time. So it's very important it not be done. So for Pete Rose, he's been made an example of. So all those players that are looking back, they're gonna know. Look, don't do what Pete Rose did because he got the ultimate penalty.
Could you imagine if this happened with like live betting too? If they actually found out somebody was shaving points, like what would happen with that? That'd be crazy managed. Well, you would do just like as betting wise. Like, do I get my money back for that bogus ass bet now that we proved it wrong?
That's a good question. My opinion on this, I'll just share it even though no one asked. It's an interesting question. I tend to think he does belong in because the rules that he broke had nothing to do with the accomplishments that he did, right? He wasn't taking steroids, he wasn't paying pitchers, he wasn't stealing signs. His hits are his hits, and they're the most that any baseball player has ever had. And so if you want to badmouth him for other things he did in the game, that's fine. You can have your own opinion about him, but the Hall, to me, is for recognizing accomplishments at the game of baseball, and he didn't break any rules in breaking those records or getting those accomplishments. So I think he belongs in there. I don't think he ever should have bet on baseball, even if he's betting on himself. And, like, come on, you trying to tell me Jordan didn't bet on himself when he was playing for the Bulls? I guarantee you he did. I guarantee you he did. We just kind of look the other way on that, but
the thing about Pete Rose, though, is there's 333 players in the Hall of Fame. This whole story of Pete Rose has given him more notoriety than a Hall of Fame election would have ever given him. So there's two sides to it. It's an interesting story. It is, tough conversation for him to have at times, but, a silver lining, I suppose.
Yeah,
I don't know about it's true. Definitely more relevant. Like that's a relevant topic, no matter how old it gets, right?
Yep. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And to me, I have no problem betting on yourself, but like you all have said, that is an extremely slippery slope. Anytime you allow a player or anyone affiliated with the game to start betting on either side. So that's tough. That's tough. Okay, well, I had such a great time with Chuck's rapid fire Would You Rather last week that I'm moving right into it myself this week. These are the hardest questions to come up with, to be honest. And so I will apologize in advance if some of them are a little bit, strange or unusual. I try to craft them for each of you guys individually, but without any further ado, let's just dive right into it. I need an instant answer and a brief explanation why. Chuck, I'll start with you. You can be, and I'll bring this up because I just saw it on ESPN the other day. You can be the national cornhole champion. Would you rather be the national cornhole champion making $10 million a year or an NBA bench warmer making $550,000 a year?
It's very easy. I need to be the national cornhole champion. Obviously, I see the angle you're looking for. You want to, be part of the NBA culture, have some more notoriety possibly there. But I think you'd be surprised when you get into these cornhole tournaments, these championships. And when you step on that field, people see you. You're the man out there, and you know it. It's gonna feel great to be the championship of the cornhole league. So give me that and that $10 million a year for sure.
That's fair, and I should say that I don't know that the guy won $10 million. I suspect he didn't, but I had to put it on par with playing in the association, so that's how I did. Solid answer. Okay, Devo. I remember last week I got a movie or music question, and I remember watching you shake your head when I picked movies over music. So I have a music question for you. Would you rather listen to your 3 favorite songs on repeat for a year, or only listen to a jazz radio station for a year?
My 3 favorite songs for a year, easily. Jazz, that doesn't get me going on anything. It's like, hey, I want like hype music. I need like some downtime music. It's like one song that's just for like every day, I guess, you know?
Pick the songs. Pick the songs, hurry.
Like, talking to you guys like this by the end of it. Like, you doing all this kind of stuff. No way.
Okay, all right, no jazz for Devo. Jeremy, let me find my question for you here. Jeremy, you're probably the biggest Vegas fan I know, which is one of the things I love about you. Would you rather have to spend 4 days a month in Vegas for a year at your own expense, or not go to Vegas for 5 years?
God. I'd have to not go for 5 years for a couple of reasons. One, I can't afford Vegas for 4 days a year. Number 2, I would probably die. I feel like I almost died on one of our trips coming home. That was after 3 days once a year. So if I had to go 4 days a month or whatever you just said, I don't know that I would survive that. So I'll skip it for 5 and then I'll go nuts for a while.
Fair enough. Vegas can be hazardous to your health. No doubt about that.
You're a different man.
Okay. Chuck, would you rather be the GM of your favorite sports team or a famous movie star?
I'd rather be a famous movie star. I don't know. It is a tough one, but being a GM, listen, it goes back to some of the GMs out there. They get scrutinized. It's a tough job. That's a lot of stress. That is not an easy job at all. And I'm not saying being a famous movie star is easy. It can get tough, but it certainly seems like it would be a lot more fun, a lot more interesting, meeting all sorts of people and being the star of those action movies. That would be a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah. Devo, you have 1 year. I'm sorry, you have just one trip to spend this money. Would you rather have $10,000 at the Nike employee store or $6,000 at Costco?
Nike employee store, easy. You already knew the answer to that one. That one was set up for me. Of course, $1,000 at the Nike employee store. At least if I just buy a lot of junk by the end of it, I can like resell it because it's Nike here and I got it for half off.
Okay. I think the obvious counter to that is, after you've blown maybe $2,000 at the employee store, what else are you getting? You can't buy. I suppose you could buy 30 pairs of shoes. 40 pairs of shoes, but what are you going to do with that?
No, you got them.
You still shoes in your garage? Fair enough. Okay. All right. And then Jeremy, the last would you rather of the evening. Would you rather live as your current self in modern day, or live as the king of a large country in the 1200s?
No, man, 1200s is nuts. Like, the life expectancy is like 35 years old. You gotta, even as a king, you're probably shitting in some sort of hole that you had to dig. No, man, I'll take today. Listen, we got sports coming back soon. I got Vegas trips that I'm going to be going on, hopefully. Give me today.
That's a man that's very content with his life. I like to hear that. All right, let me total it up.
I feel like we did good, gentlemen, as far as like having opposite answers on everything.
Absolutely.
Good shot.
Yeah, solid. Well, that last second crimming by Devo paid off, hopefully.
That's why I lose. That's the reason. It's the last second. It's bullshit. Why is he turning pages? How many pages did he write our points on?
He's counting my points.
I have a lot of big list.
Let's be honest. Who wants to win? I can't think next week. Good God.
Yeah, coming up with questions. It's going to be tough.
Okay, boys. Well, I hate to do this, but the crown goes back to Charlie with 41, Jeremy with 38, Devo with 37. Although Jeremy had the highest single score of the evening on the NBA playoffs game. I'd love your answer on that. I can't remember what it was, but whatever it was, it got you a lot of points. All right, so Chuck, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, guys. Well, there's a lot that can be said. It's a very difficult time, tough to understand everything that's going on in this world. It's I feel fortunate that we're able to do this together and continue this on. But if Byron would allow and if Devo would accept, I would actually like to cede my time to him if he'd like to say what he wanted to say.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you, Charlie. That was polite of you. I really appreciate it. And actually, I didn't really have anything to say. Like you all said, it's a difficult time. I didn't want to really talk about any George Floyd stuff. I want to get away from it with this thing and the around the corn stuff. So this is my giveaway. So I don't want to bring any of that kind of stuff up. And like you guys said, it's the only thing going on right now. So
yeah.
So basically, Charlie didn't have an answer.
No, I have something.
Now.
No, I have it. If you didn't want to accept, I can go through it.
Do it.
Okay. Well, I'll just touch on it really quick, and you guys aren't the guys that need to hear this, and I don't even know how to approach it myself and how to. It's difficult for me. I've got a family. I got to take care of my kids. I don't know what I can do to help, what I can do to make change, but I'm just so tired of hearing these arguments. Why are people arguing on this Black Lives Matter movement? I just can't understand that. Can we just get beyond that? It's not an argument, okay? Everybody's already said it, but I want it to be, I just want it to be the norm now. I wish people would just understand what that means, and I wish people cared. But, that's my hope. I hope we can continue to do what the people are doing out there, keep protesting, keep getting that message out there. And so I can only hope.
Well said. Well said. Okay, boys. Until next week, everybody take care. Hopefully, we'll have some better sports news and some better questions between now and then.
Yeah.
All right, fellas.
Nice job.
All right, boys.
Take it easy.
See ya.
Take care.